We don't talk enough about the grief that comes from losing people who are still breathing. When most people think of grief, they think of funerals and eulogies and flowers sent to a home filled with mourning. But there is another kind of grief that comes without closure, without casseroles, without a date on the calendar. It's the grief of realizing that the people who raised you cannot love you in the way you needed to be loved. It's the grief of standing in the same room with your family and feeling like a stranger. This grief is quiet because it's hard to explain to people why you feel broken about someone who still texts you on your birthday or smiles at you across the table. But behind that smile may live years of unmet needs, manipulation, favoritism, or emotional absence. And when you finally see it clearly, when the illusion crumbles, it hurts. It hurts because for so long you held on to hope. You built your identity around the possibility that one day it would feel different, that one day they'd change, that one day they'd say the words or offer the love you've always longed for. This kind of grief is layered. It's not just the loss of a relationship, it's the loss of a dream. The dream of what could have been if your family was safe, if the love was unconditional, if your presence wasn't tied to performance. It's realizing that the version of them you clung to was a version you created in your own mind to survive. Maybe you told yourself they meant well. Maybe you excused the gaslighting as generational habits or explained the silence of strength. But now you see the truth, and with truth comes ache. You're grieving the parent who never said they were proud of you, the sibling who competed instead of connected, the aunt who smiled in public but tore you down in private. And the hardest part is no one around you may validate this pain. You'll hear things like, but they're still your family, or you only get one mom, as if biology erases the emotional scars. So you carry it quietly. You grieve in the dark, and still every now and then you wonder if maybe it's your fault. If maybe you're the one asking for too much. But the grief is valid. It's real. It lives in the spaces where connection should have been. It lives in the texts you don't send, the calls you let go to voicemail, the family photos where you smile through clenched teeth. It lives in the holidays that feel heavy, not because of who's missing, but because of who's present pretending. And it's not bitterness, it's heartbreak. Grieving a living family means mourning, not just the relationship, but the version of yourself you had to become to keep that relationship afloat. It means grieving the moments you stayed silent to avoid conflict. The joy you faked to maintain peace, the truths you swallowed just to feel like you belonged. And it's hard to let go because sometimes they do show you love in their way, and you cling to those breadcrumbs hoping they mean more. But deep down, love should never hurt this consistently. So you sit with the sorrow, not because you're weak, but because you're finally facing the cost of loyalty to a bond that never fed your soul the way it was meant to. Generational pain is real, but it is not your destiny. We inherit more than eye color and last names from our families. We inherit pain, patterns, silence, beliefs passed down like heirlooms wrapped in survival and sealed with shame. Maybe it was a grandfather who never talked about feelings, a mother who coped with life by controlling everything, an aunt who carried her rage like armor. This pain travels quietly, tucked into traditions, baked into rules, reinforced by silence. And we learn early. Don't question. Don't cry. Don't feel too much. Generational pain doesn't always look like trauma. Often looks like perfectionism, people-pleasing, emotional numbness, or fear disguised as discipline. And when you grow up in it, it feels normal, familiar, like home. You may still hear their voices in your head, replay memories of better days, question if you were too sensitive or too harsh. But walking away doesn't mean you stop loving the means. You started loving yourself in a way that maybe no one ever taught you. It means you've recognized that love in its healthiest form is never supposed to cost you your voice, your boundaries, or your sense of self. Sometimes the most radical act of self-respect is choosing silence over screaming, distance over dysfunction, peace over performance. And even if others don't understand it, even if they call you cold, even if they label you the problem, it doesn't make your decision wrong. It just means they haven't had to stand where you're standing. They haven't had to smile through the tension, swallow the hurt, carry the weight of being the one who always makes room for everyone else. And eventually, you realize that being the bigger person all the time becomes a trap away of disappearing in the name of keeping the family intact. Leaving isn't always physical. Sometimes you leave emotionally first. You stop looking for their validation. You stop explaining your boundaries. You stop negotiating your worth. And even then, you may still send the birthday text, still show up to the holiday dinner, still answer the occasional call. But inside, something shifts. The tie no longer holds you hostage. And in that quiet, you learn to choose yourself without apology. You learn that love without respect isn't enough. That loyalty without safety isn't healthy. That family isn't just who you were born to, who shows up with softness, with honesty, with the capacity to hold space for your full humanity. So yes, you can love your family. You can love them deeply. You can hold their stories with compassion. You can acknowledge their wounds. You can wish them healing. And you can still walk away, not from love, but from a version of love that cost you too much, from expectations that required your silence, from relationships that were built on conditions, from patterns that were never yours to carry in the first place. There is a quiet kind of bravery in recognizing that the deepest wounds don't always come from strangers. They often come from the people we once called home. Family is supposed to be our safest place, our first belonging. But for so many, it becomes the origin of shame, silence, and survival. And navigating that complexity takes more than just courage. It takes truth-telling. That takes truth-telling. It takes honoring the whisper of your own body when it says, this doesn't feel safe. Even if everyone else tells you it's normal, it takes standing in the middle of love and pain and saying, I can feel both. And it's not betrayal. That's not drama. That's healing. That's what it means to reclaim your story. Setting boundaries isn't turning your back on love. It's turning toward the kind of love that includes you too. You can grieve a family that still breathes. You can walk away while your heart still holds compassion. And you can say, this ends with me. Without carrying the shame of what came before you, you are not here to complete the cycle. You are here to break it. And that kind of work, it's not clean. It's not easy, but it is sacred because at the end of the day, you don't owe your silence to Anna, even those who gave you your name. You owe yourself peace. You owe yourself honesty. You owe yourself the permission to rewrite the story, not to erase the past, but to stop it from becoming your future. That's not betrayal. That's self-rescue. That's the beginning of becoming.